Hello again. Welcome back to Women of the Bible, Old Testament. And this time we're going to cover 5 women. And I'm not going to go into real detail with them. I'm going to say that there's stories in the Bible. 2 of them are quite lengthy. One is several very short. But they are mentioned. One is the mother of Jephthah. She was a prostitute and she had relations with Gilead. She died when Jephthah was very young, and we don't have any more information on her. That's all. And that's in Judges 11. Also in Judges 11 is the daughter of Jephthah. Now, in chapter 11, when you read it, you're going to find that they're at war. And Jephthah said unto God, I will do this if you will give me the win. And God said, okay, I'll do that if I give you the win. But you've got to do everything you've promised. And it turns out his daughter had gone to the other side. And his daughter was his only living relative. He had no sons, no other children, just her. And sent her to the mountains for about 2 months. She comes back. He has to follow through with the agreement. She's gone. Then we have Samson's mother. You know Samson and Delilah's story. You know that story. Samson, strong, gorgeous hair. Man. And she has very specific rules that God has given her where Samson's life is concerned. Things that she has to follow, diet and his routines and his everything. And there's very specific things, specifically also no cutting of hair. And that's in Judges 13. But we don't know anything more than she's got rules that she's got to follow. She followed those rules. She was blessed. And her son is well known today for his strength and that gorgeous hair. Now comes Delilah. Oh, good old Delilah. You'll find her in Judges 16, verses 4 through 21. Man, she must have been desperate because they came to her and said, honey, we'll pay you so much money if you can tell us why he's so strong. Once she finds out what his strength is, she sells him out. Why not? She's about to make a load of money. So she sells him out. And of course, the Philistines, they take him and cut off. She's cut his hair already by this point. They chain him up, and his hair is allowed to grow again. That was their mistake. But we don't know anything more about Delilah other than she took the money and ran. Now, we have Naomi. It's the last one I want to touch on in this section. Is Naomi, and she's talked about in the entire book of Ruth. Her name means pleasant. She's pleasant. Now, as you're reading the story, she has 2 daughters-in-laws. 2 daughters-in-laws. So that means she had 2 sons and her husband. She loses all three of them in war. They're dead. Word comes back, your husbands are gone. Now, that leaves them with nothing. Now they've got to go live with the widow women in an encampment outside of town where it's really not that safe. All three of them. And try and get a living somewhere. In the meantime, Naomi decides, okay, I'm going to move back home. I'm going to go home. And looks at her daughter-in-laws and says, okay, I'm giving you two options, ladies. You can either stay with me and go with me or go back to your people. And because they didn't have the protection of the men, so one daughter decides to go back to her people. She just goes back. Whereas Ruth decides to stay with Naomi and goes with her to Judai. Now, God is taking care of Naomi no matter what. Naomi has been God-fearing. She's taken care of her daughters-in-law. She's offered them their freedom to go back to their families. She's got one daughter-in-law that decides to stay with her no matter what and is faithful to her and gives her grandchildren with another man. That's another story. Naomi is probably one of the most caring mother-in-laws you could ever want. The other women, there are several other women in the Bible that we're not going to be looking at specifically because we don't have a lot of information. It's like Opar, which is Naomi's other daughter, the one daughter-in-law that went back to her people. The mother of Jezebel, Jabez, which is the son in Chronicles. Hannah, the mother of Samuel, and gives him up to Eli. Now, can you imagine doing that, giving your son up to Eli for a life of service to God? The second wife of Eliakim, which is Peninnah. There is Merab, daughter of King Saul. She's one of his daughters. Michal, the second daughter of King Saul, and also wanted by David. So there's a lot of information on that one, but not enough to go in detail. There's Abigail, the second in the Bible. There's two Abigails. This is the second one. And then there's the medium of Endor. So some things to think about here. A godly, obedient mother establishes the spiritual framework for Samson to move into his calling and rescue God's people. Do you think that's right? Did she do that? Did she establish that framework? Some other things to think about. Will you trust God with your future regardless of hardships? Regardless of those hardships, will you trust in God? Do you have a reputation for being loyal and hardworking? Look at Ruth. Can your godly character be affirmed by others? Can it? What are you willing to sacrifice for someone you love? What are you willing to sacrifice? Not what are they willing to sacrifice for you. What are you willing to sacrifice? What can you do to help the next generation be a better future? What can you do to help that next generation? Look at Samson's mother. What did she do to help him? He was the next generation. Look at Naomi. What did she do to help Ruth for the next generation? Think about it. And then next time, we'll have a new person to bring up. It'll be the Jezebels. Okay? And that will be in 1st and 2nd Kings, also in Luke. Okay? So I look forward to that one. Have a good rest of your day, and I will see you then.